Somewhere in the world, right now, a song of hers is playing. A radio in a taxi, a phone on a kitchen table, a crowd somewhere singing the words back at her. You know the voice. Almost everybody on earth knows the voice. More than 250 million records sold, 14 #1 songs, 9 Grammys, one of the biggest music stars who has ever lived. So you'd think, wouldn't you, that this is a story about music? It isn't. Because the thing that made this woman one of the richest self-made women on the planet, it wasn't a song. It wasn't a stage. It was something you might have sitting in your bathroom right now, a little bottle of makeup. And she didn't come from money. She didn't come from a big city, or a famous family, or a fancy school. She came from an island, a tiny one, so small you could drive from one end to the other in less than an hour. An island of fewer than 300,000 people, sitting alone in the blue of the Caribbean Sea. This is the story of how a girl from that little island, a girl who once helped her father sell clothes at a street stall, grew up to build a beauty empire worth billions. And how she did it, in the end, not by hiding where she came from, but by never once letting go of it. This is World's Richest, so stay with me, because this one is going to make you smile. Her name is Rihanna, but before she was Rihanna, before the sold-out stadiums and the magazine covers, she was just Robin. Robin Fenty, a girl from Bridgetown on the island of Barbados. Let me take you there for a moment. Barbados is small, really small, about 21 miles long and 14 across. Fewer people on the whole island than in a single neighborhood of a big city. Beautiful, yes, the beaches, the bright little houses, the warm sea, but small. The kind of place the rest of the world flies over without ever knowing it's there. And that's where she grew up, working class, a small 3-bedroom house in Bridgetown, not poor to the bone, but far, far from rich. An ordinary family on an ordinary street. Her father worked in a warehouse. Her mother was an accountant, and when Robin was a girl, she would go with her father and help him sell clothes from a stall on the street. Just a child, standing beside her dad on the pavement. Picture it for a moment. The heat of the day, the noise of the street, a little folding table piled with clothes, and a small girl watching her father work, watching how he smiled at strangers, how he got a busy person to stop and look, how he turned somebody just walking past into somebody who bought. She didn't know it then. How could she? But she was getting her very first lesson in business, right there on the street, years before she could have even spelled the word. Hold on to that picture, a little girl at a street stall on a tiny island, because that's where all of this begins. Everything that comes after, the billions, the beauty empire, the crown her own country would one day place on her head, it all starts there, at that stall, with that girl. And I won't pretend it was an easy childhood. It wasn't. Her father struggled. He fought a long battle with addiction, and it made the home a hard place to be. There were good days, and there were very bad ones. Her parents split up when she was 14. She has spoken, since, about the headaches and the stress of those years, so bad that doctors once worried something was seriously wrong. I'm not going to dwell on it. It's her story to tell, not mine, but you should know it, because it's part of what makes the rest so remarkable. This was not a girl handed an easy start. This was a girl who had every reason to expect a small life, on a small island, and nothing more. And then, one day, the world came to her. It was 2003. An American music producer named Evan Rogers was on holiday in Barbados with his wife. And through a friend, he met a group of local girls who sang together. 3 of them. One of them was Robin. The story goes that the moment she walked into the room, the other 2 more or less disappeared. She had something. You couldn't teach it and you couldn't fake it. He heard her sing, and he knew. So she began flying back and forth to the United States to record. And then, at just 16 years old, she left. She left the island, left home, left everything she knew, and moved to America to chase a thing most people would have told her was impossible. Now stop and really let that land. 16 years old, she was leaving the only world she had ever known, The warm little island, her mother, her friends, the streets she'd grown up on, for a huge, cold, unfamiliar country on the far side of the sea. No safety net, no promises. No guarantee any of it would work. Just a teenage girl and a voice, stepping off a speck in the ocean and out into the whole wide world. Think about the courage that takes. A girl from an island most of the world couldn't even find on a map, betting her entire life on a dream. Most of us never have to be that brave. She was that brave at 16. And the bet paid off. Her demo landed at a record label called Def Jam. She went into audition, and the man she sang for was Jay-Z, one of the biggest names in all of music. The story goes that they liked her so much, they didn't want to let her leave the building until the contract was signed, worried that if she walked out the door, some other label would snap her up. So they kept her there, late into the night, until it was done. She was still just 16, with a 6-album deal and a brand new name for the stage, Rihanna. What happened next, you mostly know. The songs came, one after another. The little island girl became a global superstar. She sang to packed stadiums on every continent. She sold more than 250 million records. 14 of her songs went all the way to #1. She won 9 Grammys. For more than 10 years, she was simply everywhere, on every radio, every screen, every phone. Now here's where the story could have ended. And for almost any other star, it would have. Because when you get that famous, there's an easy path in front of you. You lend your name to a perfume, you slap your face on a bottle someone else makes. You cash the check, and you smile, and you let the fame slowly fade. That's what most of them do. Rihanna didn't do that. She looked at all that fame, all those eyes on her, all that trust, and she asked a different question. Not, how do I sell my name, but what could I actually build? Because fame, if you think about it, is a strange kind of wealth. It's loud and it's bright and it can vanish overnight. Songs go out of fashion. The crowd finds someone new. Rihanna seems to have understood that early, that the fame was not the prize. The fame was a tool, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to build something that would still be standing long after the music stopped playing. And the thing she chose to build changed her life far more than any song ever did. Now, I want to be honest with you here, because the honest version of this story is better than the fairy tale. Rihanna did not start her makeup company alone, penniless, in a garage. That's not what happened, and she'd be the first to tell you so. What she did was something smarter. She took her fame, the thing she'd spent 15 years building, and she partnered with one of the most powerful luxury companies in the world, a giant called LVMH. If you saw our last story, you'll know the name, the empire of Bernard Arnault, the people behind Louis Vuitton and Dior and, quietly, half the luxury on earth. They ran a special arm just for building beauty brands, and together they made a deal. Roughly 50-50. She brought the vision, the taste, and the fame. They brought the factories, the money, and the shelves in every shop. And honestly, that was the clever part. She didn't try to do it all alone and small. She took the one thing no amount of money can buy, a face and a name the whole world already loved, and she traded it for the muscle of a giant. That's not a shortcut. That's knowing exactly what you're holding and exactly what it's worth. So when you hear that Rihanna built a billion-dollar beauty empire, and she truly did, just hold on to the honest shape of it. She owns about half of it. The other half belongs to her partners at that big luxury company. She didn't do it from nothing, in a garage, alone. She did it by taking something she already had and turning it into something far, far bigger. And the honest version, if you ask me, is the more impressive one anyway. And what she built mattered. In 2017, the brand launched. They called it Fenty Beauty, her real family name, the name from that little house in Bridgetown. And on day one, it did something the beauty world had somehow never bothered to do. It launched with 40 shades of foundation. 40. Now, you might be thinking, so what? Let me tell you why that's the whole story. For years, if you had very dark skin, or very fair skin, or any skin that wasn't the safe middle that the big brands cared about, you walked into a shop and you found nothing. 5 shades, 6, none of them yours. Imagine that. Imagine getting ready for something special and going out to buy the most basic thing, a foundation to match your own face, and being told, without a word, that they simply hadn't bothered to make one for you. Millions and millions of women all over the world quietly getting that same message from the beauty industry every single day: this wasn't made for you. Rihanna knew that feeling. She had lived it herself, and so she built the exact thing she'd always wished she could find. 40 shades on the very first day. Later, more than 50. The deepest tones, the fairest tones, and every single one in between. Her whole idea had a name, and it was a simple one: beauty for all. Not beauty for some, beauty for all. And here's the moment that told the whole world she was right. When the brand launched, the shades that sold out first, before anything else, before she could even keep them on the shelves, were the darkest ones. The very shades the rest of the industry had spent years insisting weren't worth the trouble of making. Gone. Sold out. Almost overnight. Now understand what that actually meant. It wasn't just a good launch. It was proof. Proof that there had been millions of customers, all this time, standing there with money in their hands, ready to buy, and that the giant companies had simply looked straight past them, for no good reason at all, except that nobody had thought they mattered. People started calling it the Fenty effect, because one brand after another suddenly and a little awkwardly rushed to expand their own shade ranges, scrambling to catch up to the woman who had just held up a mirror and shown the whole industry what it had been refusing to see. She didn't just launch a product, she changed the way an entire business thought about who it was for. And the money. Oh, the money. The brand was a blockbuster from the very first week. By some reports, it made around $100 million in its first 40 days or so. In its first full year, it brought in more than $500 million, starting more or less from nothing. I want you to understand how rare that is. Most companies, most brands, spend 10, 20, 30 years grinding away just to dream of numbers like that. Fenty hit them in months. Not because of luck, not even only because of the famous name behind it, but because it gave a huge crowd of people something they had been asking for, quietly, for a very long time, and that nobody had ever handed them. And the reason she saw that gap, when the giant companies couldn't, it's the sweetest part of the whole thing. She once said the very first person she ever saw putting on makeup was her mother, a black woman getting ready in the mirror. That memory stayed with her. And in a way, that's the whole company right there. In one picture, she built the thing she'd grown up watching for every single person the mirror had ever left out. And she didn't stop at makeup. She built more carefully, one thing at a time. And she kept using the same idea that had made Fenty Beauty work. Find the people the industry ignores and make something for them. In 2018 came Savage X Fenty, a line of lingerie. Same thinking all over again. For years, that corner of fashion had shown women just one kind of body on its runways. Tall, thin, a single narrow idea of beautiful. Rihanna threw that out. Her shows put every kind of body on the stage, every size, every shape, every shade, and celebrated all of them. She owns about 1/3 of that company, and it grew into a business worth around $1 billion on its own. In 2020 came Fenty Skin, skincare to go with the makeup. And in 2019, that same luxury giant, LVMH, did something it had not done in decades. It created a brand new fashion house from scratch and put Rihanna at the head of it, a woman of color running her own luxury house in Paris, the first ever to do so. It was an enormous honor. I'll be straight with you about that one though, because the honest story always wins. That grand Paris fashion house didn't last. A couple of years later, in 2021, they quietly put it on hold and stopped making the clothes. So don't picture some glittering fashion empire still running today. That part paused, but the makeup, Fenty Beauty, that just kept climbing. And then came the day the whole world had to sit up and do the maths. In August of 2021, Forbes, the people who count the fortunes of the rich, made it official. Rihanna was a billionaire. At the time, they put her worth at around $1.7 billion. But here's the part that made everyone stop. Forbes said, plainly, that the money had not come from the music. Sit with that for a second, because it really is remarkable. All those songs, all those years on the road, all those #1 hits, all those sold-out stadiums, all those Grammys on the shelf, and that, the thing the entire world knew her for, was not where the fortune was, not even close. The vast bulk of it, well over $1 billion, came from her half of that makeup company. A few $100 million more came from the lingerie line, and only the smallest slice, right at the very bottom of the pile, came from all the music and the acting she was famous for. The singer the whole world knew had quietly become a billionaire from something else entirely. From a little bottle of foundation and a simple idea nobody else had bothered to have. The next year, Forbes gave her one more title. They named her, at just 34 years old, the youngest self-made woman billionaire in America. Not handed it, not married into it, built. Now, I'll be careful with the numbers, the way we always are, because fortunes like this are estimates, and they move. Since that peak, the figure has come down a little. Forbes' more recent guess puts her somewhere between about $1 and $1.4 billion. It goes up, it goes down, year to year. Nobody can hand you an exact number, and anyone who says they can is guessing. But the shape of it is solid and true. A self-made billionaire, and the money came from what she built, not from what she sang. So let's step back for a second and look at the whole thing. A girl from a street stall, on an island of fewer than 300,000 people. A hard childhood she had every right to be broken by. She left home as a teenager, chasing a dream most people would have quietly laughed at. She became one of the biggest singers alive. And then, and this is the part I love, she didn't stop there and coast. She took all of it, all that fame, and she used it to build something for the exact kinds of people the world usually forgets. The overlooked, the wrong shade, the wrong size. The ones told, over and over, this wasn't made for you. The same kind of overlooked she'd once been herself on that tiny island. That is not just a rich story, that's a good one, and there's a difference. The world is full of people who got rich. Far fewer of them did it by lifting up the people everybody else walked past. She did both at the same time, and she made it look easy. And her story has the most perfect ending I could ask for. In November of 2021, something big happened on Barbados. That little island, the speck in the ocean where the whole story began, decided to stand fully on its own, to become a republic with its own head of state, no longer bowing to a queen across the sea. After hundreds of years, the island would finally answer to no one but itself. It was one of the proudest nights in the country's history. And on that very night, in front of the whole nation, Barbados named its heroes. The handful of people who had made the island proud and carried its name out into the world. The highest honor the country can give. And there, standing among them, was a girl every single person watching remembered. The girl from Bridgetown, from the street stall, from the small house on the ordinary street. Rihanna, named a national hero of her own country, given the grand old title, the Right Excellent. The Prime Minister stood before her, in front of everyone, and told her to keep on shining, like a diamond. A little nod from a whole grateful nation to one of her own songs. Think about the shape of that. She left that island at 16 with nothing but a voice, and she came back to it a national hero. The island girl, crowned by her island. So the next time one of her songs comes on, in a taxi, on your phone, in a crowd singing every word, I want you to remember something. That voice made her famous. But it wasn't the voice that made her one of the richest self-made women in the world. It was the girl underneath the voice, the one from the street stall, the one who never forgot what it felt like to be left out, and built an empire making sure that other people wouldn't be. And maybe that's the real thing to take from all of this, not the billions. The billions are just the scoreboard. The real lesson is quieter, and it's for you, whoever you are, wherever you're watching this from. You might feel small. You might feel far away from where things happen. You might feel like the world was built for other people and somehow forgot to leave a space for you. She felt all of that too, a girl on a tiny island, in a hard house, at a street stall, and she didn't wait for the world to make room for her. She went out and built the room herself, and then she held the door open for everyone else who'd been left standing outside. Where you start does not decide where you finish. She is the living proof of it. A tiny island, a little girl, and a name, Fenty, that began on a stall in Bridgetown and ended up on shelves in every corner of the earth. We'll see you with another one very soon.